Okay, my friends, let's do part two. Looking quite well so far. I might strengthen some of the highlights later on, but I think I'll leave it as it is for now. I'm quite happy with that. Let's crack on now and do the rest of this painting. I'm just going to get a pencil and quickly sketch the cliffs, okay, just very quickly. And come up like that, come out and back in like that. And we have another one that just comes above the horizon line like that. And it takes a dip down, doesn't it? And it sort of comes back at an angle. Then another small one or two coming out. And we can make them up as we're painting. Do you know what I mean? So look, I'm going to start with the water. Best just to get all this big area done, yes? I'm going to dampen my brush, a little bit of turpentine, and I'm going to mix a nice soft mauve for over here. Mauve with a little bit of orange going through it. Now, let's take some white, let's take some magenta, and some Naples yellow. Plenty of Naples yellow because it's a very opaque colour, okay? So it takes a good bit to mix it in. Don't be shy with the Naples yellow. Let me have a look at this now and see. Okay, we have a nice soft pink. That's not bad. I might go a little bit stronger just for the water. And maybe a touch of cadmium yellow as well. So there we have a nice soft colour. That's a bit better, I think. Now, a little bit of turpentine just to make this flow nicely. It's nice and thin. It's not thick at all. Let's lean down hard and pull right across our horizon line. I took off the masking tape as well, by the way. And let's pop that in. Let's just pull it right through. Nice and thin all the way across. As it comes across and down, it's going to, you can see it starts going more mauvey, doesn't it? So I'll just take a little bit more magenta and a touch of phaylo blue. Just a touch, okay? I want a soft mauve, a little bit of white. Let's have a look. I think a little deeper, so maybe a touch of black. Just to sort of, I don't know, kind of dull it down a little bit. Yes, I think that's probably better. Go right across the horizon line, through the mountains or the cliffs. Pull that across and let it soften out. Okay, just like that. Right, I'm just going to leave it at that, just that little bit of darkness there. I'm then going to start adding a bit more blue and a bit more black to the mix, okay? Because you can see, as it comes down, there's sort of this bright spot just around here, and then it gets very dark. So trying to achieve that now may be a little tricky, but let's just take our time. There's no rush. We have all the time in the world. There's no rush with this at all. I took some phthalo blue, a little cadmium red, and some white. Let me just have a look at this now for a moment. That's more of a softer mauve now. I'm just going to soften across the top area of this as well. Just soften it out a little bit more. There we go, nice and gently across the top. Okay, I'm going to just start adding some white with a little Naples yellow into this. Now I need to be careful. I'm going to take a touch of the magenta, just a little touch as well, all right? Because I just want to get that nice bright spot in there. More Naples yellow, touch of magenta. Now one thing you'll notice on the photograph there, if you're looking, you can see the ripples of the water. They kind of they fall at an angle, don't they? A slight angle as the water's coming in. So in a moment, I'm going to just start putting in some little touches of white across there as well. Just to give a little direction in the water. Now I just want to darken a little bit of mauve there first. A little bit of red, a little bit of phthalo blue. And just up on the top right hand corner, you can see a little bit of darkness up there. I presume it's just being reflected from the clouds above. So I'm just going to pop a little of this darker shade across the top and just let it soften out, okay? And then bring it down. Just that little touch of darkness over there. I will add slightly more, maybe orangey colours as well. You know, the rule of thumb generally is when painting a sky, the ocean will have similar colours going throughout. So it's a good idea to add touches of the sky colour into the water as well. So look, I'm just going to mix a very sort of a rich kind of an orange here. It's a ready kind of an orange. Cadmium yellow pale and cadmium red. I'm just going to pop now a bit, maybe a touch of magenta. You want this more on the reddy side of an orange, okay? So let's say a pinky kind of a colour, a pinky kind of a salmon tint. So don't forget plenty of red into this because you're going over a kind of a purple, so you want plenty of red in the mix. Let's just pop a little bit of that in there first, like so. Now what that will allow me to do is, once I have this reddy kind of hue, I can then begin to add yellow to it. So if you're adding a kind of an orangey colour over a mauve or a blue, always add some red first, okay, some pink. And then you can go and just create some nice orangey colour. So cadmium yellow, cadmium red. So now we have a nice rich orange. Then we can pop that orange over that little bit of red and pink there, okay? That will allow us to put the colour on without getting muddy. You see what I mean? Very gently soften it across into your paint, just with the tip of your brush, very gently. You can see we now have a nice little touch of orange sort of a hue in the painting, don't we? Let's come down and start putting in some nice dark. Now, when it comes down, it really goes a very nice darky, kind of a greeny grey sort of a colour. So I'm going to start with some blue, then I'll take some white, some black, and then some white. I want to make this nice and dark now, by the way. Let's get some more black. Then a little touch of phaylo blue, and that already has a greenish tinge to it. So that phaylo blue with the black will give us a kind of a sort of a greeny grey kind of a colour, okay? You could add a hint of burnt umber as well. Just a hint, if you like, that will make it this nice sort of a muddy grey colour. Pop that in for now, just very loosely. Maybe a hint of Naples yellow to soften it slightly. And look, what I always say to people is just focus on one piece at a time, as I keep saying. So just concentrate on this section. Don't be looking around anywhere else. Just focus on getting this in, and then we can go from there, okay? So just pop this grey colour in there. It's kind of a greeny grey. As it comes out, it gets lighter, doesn't it? So it softens out into this colour over here. So I'm going to go with a little bit of white in that grey and a touch of magenta, perhaps. That will help us soften back into that mauve over here, you see. So we have a nice graduation of different colours going throughout the painting. So does that make a little bit of sense now? We have that nice colour going throughout. I may just lighten some of the pink here and there. It may be a little bit strong just on the top. So you see, as you're painting along like this, you're going to be changing things as you go. So I might just lighten that slightly. It's a little bit pink for me, and there's a bit of a fight going on, I think, on the canvas with the sky and the ocean. There's a little bit of a fight. So that little bit of purpley colour there is just sort of throwing it off slightly. So I'm going to take some Naples yellow and a little hint of magenta. And I'm just going to put a slightly softer colour over this just for now, okay? Let me just soften it out. I think that might help the painting a little bit more. Little touch of that yellow in there. And that's probably a little bit better, I would say. The next thing I'm going to do is switch brushes now. I'm going to go to a slightly flatter kind of a brush, okay? It's a nice sort of an edge. I'm going to pop some dark greeny blue down here. So I'm going to take some phaylo blue, a little black, and maybe a touch of cadmium yellow. So I'm going for a very sort of a blacky green. Now, if you feel it's too dark or too greeny, add a touch of burnt umber to the mix. That will help sort of just dull it down ever so slightly. Now I'm just going to go and pop this in, flick the brush left and right. Look, just soften it through. As it comes down, you can see it sort of spreads wider and wider, doesn't it? So we just drag it across a little bit more, softening it all the time with the brush. Soften everything together, nice and smooth. And then as we get in here, it gets really dark, doesn't it? So we can just go with black and phthalo blue, I think, just in there. And that will give a nice contrast, I think, when the painting is finished. And again, just bring it out very slightly as you come down. And I'm just creating some texture as well at the same time, and a little bit of movement, you see, with my little flat brush. Just putting a little flick here and there, softening them through. Dragging them out. So just creating some movement in the water. That's really all you want to do, is create a little bit of movement. I think that's okay. I'm going to leave it at that. Now the next thing I'm going to do is, I just really do want to create a little bit of darkness out here, in the sense that a little bit of movement, okay, on the water. And I'm going to use this flat brush. Now you can use a little palette knife for this if you like. I'm just going to try this brush. I'm going to take some mauve, all right, some phthalo blue and some magenta. And again, more on the red. Let's take a touch of cadmium red in there as well. For the sake of it, let's make a nice little plum. So a nice rich plum. What I'm going to do is simply just pop a little bit of plum here and there, just to add some little touches of movement out in the water out here. Now you can use a palette, as I said, the palette knife will be great for this as well, if you want to try and using your palette knife. But sometimes I find the tip of a little flat brush is absolutely perfect for this kind of work. And you see it's just softening away into the paint underneath. Again, I keep saying, try to simplify this. Don't try too hard to get this absolutely perfect first time. We're only just creating an impression of the scene. We're not trying to create a photograph. A nice little impression of a little seascape. That's all we're doing. Okay? That's all we're trying to achieve. Just drag a little bit of that paint around. Now, so I'm happy enough with that. I think we created a little bit of movement there. The next thing I'm going to do is some white. Let's add some white to this. I'm going to get a small pointy brush. Okay, smallest pointiest brush you can find. Let's just go right into some white. And I better roll my sleeve up for this, because I don't want to be getting paint on my sleeve. Let's take some white. And you can see we have some nice little bits of wiggly white going through here and there. Just load up your brush and simply add some little wiggles to the painting. Okay, that's all you have to do. Just very loose. Just to show a little bit of movement on the water surface. So little bits of foam sort of coming in and crashing and all that kind of thing. And it's really fun. Just go for it. Don't be shy. Just pop a little paint in here and there. Again, the palette knife is a great way to do this. And I'm going to create just some little ripples in this direction, okay? You see, I'm hardly even touching the canvas in some places. I'm just allowing the paint to sort of be dragged off of the canvas here and there. A little touch of movement. I want to thicken this one up here. This is nice and thick over here, isn't it? And that's all you have to do, really. Just tip away with like this, just popping little touches of colour, maybe a few here and there on some of those darker sections, a couple of little highlights on top to suggest the tips of the water just starting to kind of fold as it comes in. And you see what I mean? I'm just putting little dabs of paint to create the illusion of some detail and just the illusion of a lot going on. That's all I'm doing, really. It's just an illusion. So when you stand back, you think, yeah, there's a lot of waves and there's lots of water moving around in there, lots of foam, all that kind of stuff. But when you look closely, it's just a couple of little brush strokes. That's all it is. Right, let's move on to our cliffs. I'm going to get a slightly smaller flat brush, and I'm going to start with the far off cliffs off there. And you can see it's a sort of a nice reddy brown, isn't it? And try a little touch of sienna, little burnt umber, and some naples yellow. Let's have a look at that. Maybe a touch of cadmium red as well. So a nice reddy brown. Now, because we have a lot of pink in the painting, I'm thinking maybe a touch of magenta. So a slightly sort of pinky brown, if you will. And then some Naples yellow to soften it back. Now you can play around with your colours in this. You don't have to try to be absolutely perfect with all of these colours. You can play around with them a little bit. Let's just pop this in off in the distance. And it comes up. Comes across. And bring it down into that ocean. Take a little bit of plum. Let's get a little bit of plum. And make this one slightly darker in front. And you see the way I'm just softening all of this into the water at the bottom, just slightly. So we have a nice misty effect. They really look like they're far off in the distance that way by doing that. Okay, I'm just going to add a little touch of darker colour to the front one here. And of course, what that does is it pushes everything else back slightly. You see what I mean? So now we have one far in the distance and one slightly closer. And that's it. It's just a case of doing that for each one. Let's try this one here. I am going to take some burnt umber and some magenta, and I'll go for a little touch of black. Okay, now all these colors together are very rich and very dark. I'll start with these and then I'm going to just add some lights to them as I go. Okay, so let's just paint this in very quickly. We don't have to be absolutely perfect with this. My sky is dry, by the way. I let the sky dry for 2 days. And just fill that in. Let's go. Let's just fill it all in. Add a little touch of Naples yellow in there, and even a touch of magenta. Those two colors, look, make a nice, soft, subtle color. A little bit of light. And let's just bring that down at a slight angle, because to create perspective, you need to go off at a very slight angle. So you can see it's coming forward bit by bit. Now, I'm going to take a little touch of black and that bluey color. Just pop a little bit of that in, just towards the bottom. One thing I notice about cliffs and things like that is they always tend to get darker down towards the ocean because they're wet. It's wet rock, so wet rock will always be darker, slightly darker. So I'll always add a little bit of dark towards the bottom. Just like that, you see, scraping the brush up and down, just a little touch of it, that's all. And that's okay. I mean, look, you can keep adding to this if you like. It's completely up to yourself. Now I see a little small bit of a peak sticking up out of the water there. Let's put that in. Okay, little touch coming up. Like so. You take even a touch of sienna into that. You know, I wouldn't worry too much about detail in this. I'm going to switch to a bigger brush for this one. This one is a bit more yellow. Now, as I said, I'm going to focus on putting in the darks. I'll add lights to these then later on, all right? So I'm just focusing now on getting a nice dark shade in for all of this. Burnt sienna, burnt umber. Let's try that. Now that could be a nice base color, couldn't it? So let's try that. Let's just put that in. And bring it out at the bottom. And just fill this in with that nice dark brown. I may use a palette knife on this in a moment, I think, just to create a nice simple rock effect. I don't want to go into too much detail with the cliffs, putting in little ridges and all that kind of thing. I think that just becomes too complicated, especially for tutorial. I find it becomes very complicated for tutorial if I start putting in tiny little ridges and bits of detail. So I'm going to try and just keep this simple. I think it's probably better that way. So I have a nice warm colour there now. I'm then going to start going for a burnt sienna. Let me just clean my brush. Burnt sienna with some Naples yellow. I'm not mixing it, and I'm just going to first suggest the edge of the cliff up there. You see the way we have that light up on top? I could even go for some cadmium red and Naples yellow as well. That'll give us a nice warm colour. And then I'm going to turn it down, okay? So simply creating some nice shapes coming down like this. And you can see that bit of cadmium red just adds a touch of light into it as well, doesn't it? Now that's the very first kind of a step, really, I suppose. The next thing I think I should do is, let's try a palette knife and see can we create some beautiful texture on this. A nice simple textured effect. I'll just take some Naples yellow and I will take some burnt sienna. So you can see how quick we have achieved this so far, very, very quickly. Now there's one little thing I'd like to do just to show you how to create a little distance in some of your cliffs, okay? So this one here, for example, I'm going to pop a little touch of a light mauve into that. Now I'll show you why. If I take a little magenta, maybe a little bit of that blue, so I have a nice soft mauve. If I pop a little bit of that mauve in here, you can see automatically right away it sort of adds that little bit of depth into the hill, doesn't it? Into the cliff. Just that little bit here and there. You see the way? It's almost like a bit of mist. Almost. Okay, let's grab a palette knife. Let's get this nice flat palette knife. Let's try some burnt sienna, some Naples yellow. So I think I'll start with those two first, maybe a hint of white as well, okay? So you can see I have a nice bright colour there. Plenty of Naples yellow, don't be shy with the Naples yellow. I won't even mix it too much. And I'm just going to start along the edge, look. And let's just create a nice edge there. So we have a light against the dark then, you see, from the ocean to the cliff. Isn't that lovely now? I think that's nice. I like that. It's just a simple effect, but it really does create some beautiful cliff faces. Another little bit here. Come around the edge, give it a wiggle, drag it down. And you can really just go to town with this. You can do whatever you like. Take a little bit more white perhaps. Drag a little bit of that through there like that. Just having a bit of fun. See now how quickly we've created that cliff. So quickly. You could add some darks into this. I think a little bit of dark will help. So burnt umber and some black. And we could just say, let's just say there's a couple of dark ridges popping in here and there. Let's just assume there is. So why not? Let's just go for it. Already we have a beautiful cliff face. Now I'm going to do the very same thing with the top half, I think, just to put a bit of green. In fact, look, what I will do actually is, while I have a tiny bit of that colour, I might add just a little touch of it on this cliff as well, just to create a little bit of texture on this far off cliff. Very gently, and I'm just even softening it together with the palette knife itself, okay? I'm going to sort of drag it around and just help it disappear into the cliff, you see? I think just a little bit of texture there is quite nice. Now, a green. Let's make a nice green. Let's take some cadmium yellow. I'm going to go for a warm green this time. So cadmium yellow and a touch of black. That will give us a nice, warm, rich green. And I'm only using tiny amounts of paint as well. Look, tiny amounts of paint. When I see people and artists on YouTube especially, and they have big huge blobs of paint, almost a full tube of paint, and they're just grabbing loads of it, and then they have loads left over afterwards, it's a terrible waste, I think. Maybe it's just me. I just think it's an awful waste. I think, you know, only use what you need, really. There's no need to have a ton of waste on your palette when you're finished your painting. Okay. I'll maybe take a little bit of darker colour and just darken it here and there. Now, I'll use my small pointy brush. I'm going to mix some nice rich dark greens. Some blue, some black, a little bit of cadmium yellow, tiny bit, and plenty of turpentine. I just want to get a very dark colour, very blacky green. I'm going to just put a little bit of shadow in here and there. Again, just to add a suggestion of a little bit of darks catching the land, just here and there, that's all. And you can even bring some of that colour down onto the cliff itself. Grab a little bit of cadmium yellow, suggest a little bit of greenage coming down. Just drag it with your brush. Don't be shy. Don't be afraid to ruin your painting. Look, you're not going to ruin your painting. It's just paint. Okay, now I've a clean brush. I'm going to take some Naples yellow, and I'm going to simply just pop a little touch of Naples yellow across here and there. Look, a couple of little wiggles here and there. I'm looking around. I'm just looking all the time. I'm going to take a little bit of white And just suggest a little bit of white at the end of this cliff here, look. Just give it a little wiggle. Touches of white. Just to create a little bit of splash up on that cliff in the distance. And what that does as well, it just helps the cliff sit down in the water. So if you don't do that, it's kind of almost looks like it's just floating mid-air. So a little bit of water here and there, a bit of white. Look, just here and there, couple coming out from behind, the back of the front one. You see, it just adds a little detail to the painting, and it just helps it sit down. Okay, we have one final piece here, a little bit of mound of greenery coming up here. I'm going to take some black, some blue, and lots of yellow. And a bit of turpentine as well, actually. Let's just put a nice rich green. And this is nice then because it just helps to draw your eye into the center of the painting. Understand? Rather than just being left drift outwards. I'm going to take a fan brush. Let me just find a nice fan brush here, a nice soft fan brush. Okay, this one will do. I'm going to take some darker colour. I'll go for some phaylo blue and a little black. I'm going to start here with a little shade. Dab, 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 dab. Like this, nice and dark first. Very random, look, very simple, very random. Then I'll give that a quick clean. Dip it in the turpentine, get a rub on some tissue, and let's go into some yellow. Now my yellow's quite hard, look, it's been here for the last 2 days, so it's quite tough. But we'll get there. A little bit of Naples yellow, a little bit of cadmium yellow. Let's just add a little touch of light over that. Even a touch of burnt sienna as well. Now I'm going to get some more cadmium yellow because I just want to add 1 or 2 small suggestions of maybe little yellow flowers here and there. So let's just go like this, look. Just a couple of little dabs. And it's really, I suppose, only just to add a little colour to it, that's all. I'm going to take a little black, darken up there again, just a bit. Create some separate sections of greenery up there. Just give it all a nice wiggle. And my friends, you really don't have to do any more to this if you feel you don't need to. It'll be absolutely fine as it is. I don't know, should I put a little sailboat or something out there in the distance? What do you think? I'm just worried about maybe ruining the look of the painting. If I put a sailboat out there, I might take a little sienna because it'll be in slight shadow. So let's just try and put a small sailboat, and I'm going to have it sailing into the painting, okay? That will bring our eye across. It's just a tiny, tiny suggestion, that's all. And a tiny bit of a wiggle for a reflection. Tiny, tiny, tiny. A very small little wiggle. The smallest one you could do. And that's it, my friends, we're done. Now, actually, I might add a small touch of light, catching just there, okay? And I could add a touch of light on this as well, and maybe just along here and there. and we're finished. I'm not going to go into much more detail than that. I think that's absolutely fine. A beautiful little scene finished. Isn't that wonderful? So my friends, I really hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. I certainly have. I think it's turned out very, very nice. I'm quite happy with this. Do just try to keep it simple. Look, have a bit of fun, all right? Let me just turn the camera here for yourselves so you can see me. Hope I can get this to turn slightly. There we go. And I'll straighten it a little bit. Thank you so much for joining me, my friends. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I've had great fun. Nice, colourful little landscape for you to try. Okay, you might find it a little difficult with the colour mixing, but just take your time and just be gentle with the mixing of your colours, okay? Pick up little touches of colour, because a little goes a long way with oil painting, all right? So try and just keep it simple and have some fun, okay? I'll see you very, very soon, my friends. Thank you so much for joining me, and thank you to my patrons. Thank you kindly so much. I'll see you again very, very soon. Happy painting, and God bless my friends. Take care.